Have you ever had someone in your life who made you feel like something was off, but you couldn't quite explain why? They didn't hurt you directly, they weren't obviously cruel. In fact, they might have seemed helpful, warm, or even charming, but underneath all that, something didn't sit right. And if you ignored your gut, you probably found out the hard way that not every danger comes with a warning label. Carl Jung spent his life studying this exact kind of human behavior, not just what people show but what they hide, and he made it crystal clear: the most dangerous people aren't always loud, aggressive, or explosive. The truly dangerous ones? They blend in, they smile, they pretend to care, and all the while they're slowly dismantling your sense of safety from the inside out. They don't yell, they don't threaten, they get close, too close, and that's what makes them so difficult to spot. That's also why most people miss the signs until it's too late. Jung understood that most of us get trapped by appearances. We trust the persona, the outer mask people wear to survive and gain approval. But that's not who they really are. What you see isn't always what you get. People show you what they think will work, not what's true. And if you're not aware of that, if you haven't done your own inner work, you'll give your energy, your time, even your love to someone who was never safe to begin with. So today, we're going to look at 6 subtle but dangerous personality types that Jung warned us about. These aren't people who explode. These are people who erode, slowly, quietly, and from within. Let's start with the first. 1. The chronic victim. This is the person who is always suffering. Nothing is ever their fault. Life is constantly unfair to them, and someone else is always to blame. At first you empathize, you feel compassion, you want to help, and they welcome that. But Jung noticed something deeper, something darker. People who live in permanent victimhood often do so because it gives them power without responsibility. If you're always the one being hurt, you never have to examine your own behavior, you never have to change, you never have to take accountability. The chronic victim uses their pain as a weapon. They guilt you, they twist facts, they turn your kindness into emotional debt, and before you know it, you're not helping them, you're carrying them. Their emotional weight becomes your responsibility. But here's the catch: they don't want healing, they want control, they want your pity, because that's where their power lies. Jung warned that when someone fuses with this victim identity, they've merged with their shadow. They're not just in pain, they're manipulating from it, and if you stay too close, you'll start feeling guilty just for being okay. That's not empathy, that's entrapment. 2. The charming mirror. You've probably met this one, the person who instantly clicks with you. They laugh at all your jokes, they validate your dreams, they seem to get you better than anyone ever has. And that's exactly the trap. Jung called this the persona trap. When someone becomes so identified with their mask that they forget who they really are. These people don't show you their true selves. They reflect back the version of you that you most want to see. They're agreeable, supportive, maybe even inspiring, but if you look closely, something's missing. They have no clear values, no stable identity. They morph and mimic to win approval, and that's the danger. They feel safe, but they're actually hollow. You never really met them. You met a version of yourself they performed just well enough to keep your trust. They're not loyal to you. They're loyal to the feeling of being liked. And the moment your admiration fades, so do they, or worse, they turn on you. Trusting this kind of person is like shaking hands with fog. Nothing to hold on to, nothing real underneath. 3. The passive-aggressive enabler. Now this one's harder to detect because they don't argue, they don't attack, they don't even raise their voice. Instead they suggest, they imply, they subtly undermine you, always with a smile. They'll say things like, "Wow, that's a big goal, I just hope you don't get disappointed." Or, "You're brave for trying that, I don't think I could handle failing like that." On the surface it sounds like concern, but it's not. It's quiet sabotage wrapped in soft language. Jung saw this as the dark side of the helper archetype, the person who pretends to support you but is actually inserting their own fear and doubt into your path. They don't want you to fail, they want you to need them, because if you grow, if you succeed without them, they lose control, they lose their unspoken authority, so they keep your wings clipped, just enough that you never fully take flight. They call it support, but it's not. It's control disguised as care. 4. The secret competitors. This one's tricky because they pretend to be your friend. They smile when you win. They congratulate you out loud. But watch what happens next. They shift the focus. They tell their own story. A little bigger, a little better. They turn your moment into their mirror. And suddenly, you're not sure if they're happy for you or trying to one-up you. Jung believed this behavior comes from deep-rooted insecurity. These people don't resent you. They resent what you reflect back to them. Your success reminds them of their own perceived failure, so they compete with you, secretly, quietly. They copy your ideas. They offer praise with a sting. They're never fully happy for you unless they're ahead. You'll feel it in their energy. You'll sense it in their backhanded compliments. And when you stumble, they won't say it out loud, but they'll be relieved. They'll say things like, "I was worried this might happen. I tried to tell you." But what they were really doing all along was waiting. Jung warned us, never trust someone who can't clap when it's not their turn to win. That's the first 4 types. Each one might seem harmless at first. Each one blends in. But over time, they wear you down. They confuse your instincts. They distort your view of what real connection feels like. And if you don't see it early, you'll start questioning yourself more than you question them. But we're not done. There are 2 more types Jung described, and these might be the most dangerous of all, because they come dressed as wisdom and compassion. They don't just charm you, they lead you, they heal you, and slowly they take over. In part 2, we'll go deeper into the final 2 archetypes, the manipulative wise one, and the empath who uses emotion to quietly control. Plus, how these patterns often stem from childhood trauma, and why Jung believed they're the hardest to recognize. Let's keep going. Now that we've uncovered the first 4 types, the chronic victim, the charming mirror, the passive-aggressive enabler, and the secret competitor, we move into even more deceptive territory. These next 2 masks are wrapped in wisdom and empathy. They don't just win your trust, they guide you, they comfort you, they lead you. But Carl Jung had a stark warning. The more spiritual someone appears, the more you should watch for their shadow. Because sometimes what looks like light is just ego hiding in robes. Let's begin with type 5. 5. The spiritual narcissist, the wise one. This person doesn't raise their voice. They don't argue. They don't react. Not in the usual way. Instead, they speak in calm tones. They quote Rumi. They reference chakras, energy, healing, inner child work and alignment. They sound enlightened. They feel centered. They radiate stillness. But something still feels off. Jung described this as a psychic split. The conscious self clings to a spiritual identity, while the shadow, the unhealed, unacknowledged part, leaks out through superiority, judgment, and quiet control. You see, the wise one doesn't dominate through volume. They dominate through presence. When you disagree with them, they don't get defensive, they get philosophical. They say things like, "Sounds like that's a trigger you haven't resolved yet," or "I'm just holding space. It's not my responsibility to carry your projections." It all sounds wise, but it's not humility, it's a power play, because in every conversation, they stay above you. You're always the one with work to do. You're always the one reacting. And they're just calmly observing. This kind of emotional performance is subtle but damaging. It turns your real feelings into liabilities. It makes you question your responses. And worse, it trains you to suppress your instincts in the name of peace. But Jung saw right through this. He warned that many who speak about ego death haven't killed their ego. They've simply rebranded it. They've wrapped it in mysticism and given it authority. It's not that they've transcended. They've just buried their need to control under soft words and spiritual posture. And the more you seek their guidance, the more you give away your own clarity. You become a student, not an equal. You feel small beside them, and not because they're wise, but because they need you to feel small to feel big. Their wisdom isn't shared, it's used. Not to help you grow, but to keep you dependent on their version of truth. That's not guidance, that's ego in disguise. 6. The empath, who always ends up in control. At first, they seem like the safest person in the room. They're sensitive, attuned. They pick up on emotions. They feel your sadness. They cry with you. They comfort you. You feel deeply seen. You feel emotionally held. And that's the beginning of the trap. This person leads with empathy, but not in the way you think. Their emotional awareness becomes a form of control. You start tiptoeing around their moods. You hesitate to share how you really feel because you don't want to trigger them. You edit your tone, your words, your truth, because their feelings are so intense. Over time, you're no longer being yourself. You're managing them. Jung spoke often about projection, how we unconsciously assign our unresolved wounds to others. The empathic controller does this masterfully. They project their unhealed chaos outward and then expect the world to arrange itself around their sensitivity. They don't ask for control, they make it necessary. You can't be honest without hurting them. You can't disagree without causing a breakdown. You can't set a boundary without being called cold, so you stay quiet. You over-explain. You sacrifice peace with yourself to avoid disturbing theirs. That's not love. That's emotional enmeshment. The empathic controller doesn't want real connection. They want safety, but they want it on your dime. And if you fail to meet their emotional standards, you become the villain. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're insensitive. You don't understand. You're unstable. But you're not. What's really happening is this. You've been pulled into someone else's storm, and now you're trying to keep them steady while you lose yourself in the process. Jung warned that these people often have unintegrated shadows masked by intense emotionality. They confuse feeling deeply with being right. They use their pain like a lever, shifting responsibility onto anyone who gets too close. And if you're not careful, you'll spend years trying to regulate someone who refuses to regulate themselves. Let that sink in. These people don't control you through dominance. They control you through emotional vulnerability. But make no mistake, it's still control. So now we've revealed all six. Runner-calf, the chronic victim, the charming mirror, the passive-aggressive enabler, the secret competitor, the spiritual narcissist, the empathic controller. And here's the hard truth. They don't always look like villains. They don't even think of themselves as toxic. Most of them aren't out to destroy you. They're out to survive. They've never met their shadow, so now they make you carry it. They've never faced their own darkness, so they project it onto everyone around them. They say they're helping, healing, guiding, or feeling too much, but underneath it all is a refusal to take true responsibility for their pain. And the more unaware they are, the more dangerous they become, because they don't know what they're doing. But you feel it, you carry it, you start to lose yourself while trying to be the bigger person. But here's the deeper twist, and it's something most people miss. You don't just attract these people randomly. You attract them because there's a part of you that's still afraid to stand in your truth. Jung believed that the shadow doesn't just cause pain, it also attracts patterns. If you've repressed your anger, you'll attract people who violate your boundaries. If you've repressed your need for self-protection, you'll attract those who slowly consume your energy. If you're addicted to being nice, you'll keep tolerating disrespect and calling it love. So the question isn't just who are they? The deeper question is, why did you let them stay? In Part 3, we'll explore how to stop attracting these dynamics, how your own shadow makes you vulnerable, and how to become someone no manipulator, narcissist, or controller can touch. You're not here to be drained. You're here to wake up. Let's finish strong. By now, you've seen the 6 faces Jung warned us about. Each one masked, each one wrapped in something disarming: helplessness, charm, concern, celebration, wisdom, or empathy. And yet every single one has the potential to erode your sense of self if you're not paying attention. But here's the part most people skip. This video isn't just about them, it's also about you. Because if these people keep showing up in your life, it's not just bad luck, it's not punishment, it's a mirror. Jung was very clear on this. We don't just attract what we want, we attract what we are, especially the parts of us we've buried, rejected, or refused to deal with. This is the real work, the uncomfortable part, the part that turns awareness into transformation. So let's go there. Why do we tolerate people like this? Because deep down, we're afraid of being seen as selfish, angry, or hard to love. So we overgive, we over-explain, we stay quiet when our soul is screaming. We tolerate manipulation, not because we're weak, but because somewhere along the way we learned to value harmony more than honesty, and that's where the shadow begins. Jung defined the shadow as the part of ourselves we repressed to survive in the world. It's the anger we were punished for, the power we were told to hide, the instincts we ignored to stay liked, accepted, or safe. So we became agreeable, kind, nice. We became everything that made us lovable in someone else's eyes. But we lost something in that process. We lost our edge. We lost our ability to say, "That's not okay." We lost our instinct to walk away without guilt. Because when you bury your anger, you invite disrespect. When you bury your intuition, you ignore red flags. When you bury your need for boundaries, you start performing instead of protecting. And this is where manipulative people thrive. They don't just find you randomly. They sense your open door. They walk through the parts of you that haven't been claimed yet. They enter where your awareness ends. But here's the beautiful part. The moment you integrate your shadow, your anger, your power, your self-trust, they lose access. It's not about becoming hard or bitter. It's about becoming whole. Jung never wanted you to become cold. He wanted you to stop pretending that your love is infinite, that your patience has no limits, that everyone deserves your trust, because they don't. Some people are not learning, they're not growing, they're not evolving, they're just adapting their language, saying all the right things while repeating the same toxic patterns. And unless you change your relationship with yourself, you'll keep inviting them back in. So what now? How do you protect yourself without closing off your heart? Let's break it down. Step 1. Audit your circle. Start asking the real questions. Who drains me? Who confuses me? Who do I feel small around? Who do I keep justifying myself to? If someone constantly needs you to explain your boundaries just so they can barely respect them, that's not confusion, that's avoidance of accountability. Let them go. Quietly, without drama, without over-explaining. You don't owe anyone access to your nervous system. Jung said it best. Withdrawal is not weakness, it's a conscious act of self-preservation. You're not ghosting them, you're choosing you. Step 2. Let your shadow speak. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop aiming to be endlessly understanding. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to get angry. You're allowed to question people's motives. Your shadow isn't evil. It's protective. It remembers who you are when others are trying to make you forget. Let that part rise. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." If you want real peace, stop performing for it. Integrate the part of you that knows how to say, "I'm not available for this anymore." Step 3. Stop explaining yourself. The people who are aligned with you won't need a thesis statement just to treat you with respect. They'll get it. But the toxic ones, they'll demand reasons. They'll guilt you. They'll flip the script and make you the problem. Let them. Jung didn't believe in convincing the unconscious to see your light. He believed in becoming so rooted in your own clarity that their confusion doesn't pull you off center. Step 4. Trust what you felt the first time. You weren't paranoid. That moment your stomach turned, that hesitation before you said yes, that weird vibe you couldn't explain, that was your body picking up on something your mind hadn't processed yet. Trust that. Your subconscious is faster than your thoughts, and it's honest. Don't ignore those quiet nudges just because someone seems safe. The people Jung warned us about, they don't show up with red flags. They show up with charisma, with vulnerability, with spiritual language and emotional stories. But time reveals all masks, and when it does, you need to be far enough away that it no longer costs you. The final word. Carl Jung didn't want you to fear people. He wanted you to stop fearing yourself. He wanted you to trust your instincts, to reclaim your shadow, to stop outsourcing your intuition in exchange for approval. Because the more of your shadow you integrate, the fewer toxic people get through the door, not because you're closed, but because your energy is clear. Your boundaries are felt. Your presence no longer feeds manipulators. You stop over-explaining. You stop fixing people who don't want to change. You stop allowing chaos into your life just to feel needed. And without ever raising your voice, you become someone who can't be manipulated, someone who can't be used, someone who can't be dimmed just to make others feel safe. Because now, you are whole, you are awake, you are everything Jung wanted you to be.